In 2001 and 2002, that's when I went to Columbia University, and there was a lot of digital 3D designing and a lot of new software to envision new forms that you couldn't do any other way. That's the key. That's what I wanted to partake on and envision a new kind of sense of being in the world, a new kind of space and form of the spaces. And I was working on projects that involve architecture, but in a very experimental way, never in a conventional, let's say, a normative building like a tower, but rather in a more taking on architectural programs as exercises, but in a rather radical way. And that led naturally to working with Eisenman, who actually did have projects that involved buildings, but looked nothing like conventional buildings either. So that was a perfect transition because I was able to apply what I learned in school directly to working on these projects with an enormous responsibility. This project was getting built in Spain, and I was just put on the shoes of replacing somebody that had been doing that. And I had to, in my head, adapt how to convert all these 3D, too radical knowledge into things that can be quantified and accounted for and built. So that, influenced a lot, I think, of what I was able to do afterwards. I taught in New York, I taught at Pratt, NJIT, and YIT, and taught at Columbia with amazing people. I taught with Hani Rashid. I also taught with Hernan Diaz Alonso, who's now the director at SCI-Arc. And I taught my own studios, but then I think that that experience of having to learn to take on these, ideal three-dimensional adventures into, projects that are not diluted, that are as radical and experimental, but to be built, which I did at Eisenman Architects for about 2 years. And then I worked for Asymptote, a younger firm, as radical, as cool as Eisenman, but younger. And then when I finished working really for other architects in 2005, and I thought I wanted to take on that and work with Veronica on our own practice. While I was doing that, Veronica had the chance to work on projects like the World Trade Center competition, the very famous one. We were in Colombia, by the way, when 9/11 happened. We were students, and she worked on the final. She was in a team that was one of the finalists of that competition, which Lise won. Although there was a team of very young, very cool, best professors of that crop from Columbia University that went on to become stars, but they all put together a team called United Architects for that project. And Veronica was part of the team. It was an amazing experience. So we were doing these parallel experiences, but we really wanted to, set our own firm, Monad Studio, which came to be in 2004. And while I was kind of moonlighting still for these architects, we wanted to really teach and have our own practice. And the modality was this one. You would teach, and that would free up also opportunities and time to run your practice in a way that you're not, because you're teaching and that sort of pays the bill, you can then take on projects without the weight of saying, oh, this has to pay the bill, So I guess academia that's how I saw academia and architecture, as an opportunity to be able to then liberate other things, liberate expression and experimentation. But then, as I was saying, in 2006, we moved to Miami, and I became the sort of coordinator or director of all the digital architecture things we do in the school. And I wanted to, first thing, I had the school buy 3D printers, CNC milling machines, vacuum formers. None of that existed. It did not exist when I was a student at Columbia, but then it began to exist slowly. But then it certainly did not exist in FIU 2006. And then that led to years of experimenting with that through students' projects, our own projects, all of that. And the ethos, I guess it became naturally of Monad Studios. We don't take on projects that are going to just only exist on a screen. We only take on projects that we want to do and dedicate our time, that we see that they will be built, that they will become a physical, there's a strong will or demand that they become a physical artifact. And, it needed to be small first, things are at the scale of the body and whatnot, so that we can really do them and do them at the sophistication and sort of, and design aesthetics we wanted to achieve. So that's completely connected to that experience, articulating the movement from being a student at Columbia University at 30 years old, I wasn't that young, to becoming the lead designer of a big project for Eisenman that was getting built. So we wanted to really, make the digital world become something that produces physical objects. And that's what we're still working on. You saw some of them lately. And they're very difficult to build because they're not easy to rationalize to build, but we do it.